University of Virginia Center for Politics Director Larry Sabato joins me now. Larry, before we get into the presidency, I want to ask you about Bush as a campaigner. How did he connect with the American people?
He was very down to earth. He was always humble. He used self-deprecating humor. He didn't brag much. Actually, his staff was worried about that at times because he didn't tell people all the things he had done, and they were pretty impressive even when he was running in the 1960s. So he was a different kind of campaigner. He wasn't a great rhetorician, and he was the first to admit it. So he had a different style of campaigning, but people did connect with him, and they believed that he was an appropriate, well-trained person, as his slogan once said, from day one, ready from day one to be president.
Well, take us back again, back to 1989. What were the issues that the country was facing when he took office then, and how did he handle them?
He was the natural successor to Ronald Reagan, who was a very popular president, and that's one of the reasons why Bush was elected. The first real crisis to hit the Bush presidency, which wasn't necessarily foreseen on the day he took the oath of office, was the collapse of the Soviet Union and the elimination of the Soviet domination of Eastern Europe. The way he handled that is going to be a major topic for historians for many generations to come, because he handled it so skillfully. He didn't run to the Berlin Wall or the deconstructed Berlin Wall and have a press conference and gloat about how the United States and our allies had won, though in fact we had won. He didn't do that. He was quietly and effectively orchestrating things behind the scenes. He was giving the former Soviet Union, now Russia and other countries, the opportunity to reorganize and put distance between themselves and the past. It was really a brilliantly handled. And I think it's one reason why his presidency is underrated and will, in fact, be more highly rated in the future.
I want to go back to our CBS News vault and play some sound for you from a 1996 interview with Paula Zahn, where President Bush, 41, addressed his 1992 re-election loss.
I wonder, after being in public service for 25 years and being as evolved as you were nationally and internationally, how you decompressed when you suddenly found yourself out of office?
Right then, I was hurt. Probably, and well, what did I do wrong? How could I not get clear to get through to the American people better and all this stuff? And so there was a period of that, but there wasn't any period of self-pity or thinking you were, on the other side of it, thinking you were entitled to a grand lifestyle. And so we just went back to work and started answering mail and doing all the things, some of the things you had to do when you were president, but with no decision making. Go from one day making decisions, getting worried about getting a call that something was wrong, the next day nothing. Nobody gave a damn about what I thought, cared, and that was the way it ought to be. And it has not been difficult.
Larry, I just can't shake the ability of George W. Bush to be H.W. Bush to be such a gracious loser.
Well, he really was. But again, I think it was his breeding, and it was in his basic character. Not all presidents have that character, and we all know that. But he was gracious in defeat. People ought to read that letter he left Bill Clinton on the day Clinton was sworn in. It was incredibly gracious and very positive and encouraging to Bill Clinton, and they became great friends. They used to exchange visits, and Clinton would frequently join the Bushes up at Kennebunkport. This is the kind of thing we've seen with George H.W. Bush and with Bill Clinton and with George W. Bush and with Barack Obama. It's really the way the presidency ought to be, particularly the ex-presidency, because ex-presidents can help current presidents make wise decisions if they're consulted.
Bush 41 was a war hero, Larry. He went on to become president. He served his country in every way, every shape you could imagine. If you were to ask him today, what would be your biggest, most successful achievement? What do you think he would be most proud of during his lifetime of service?
Boy, that's a great question because, as you note, he had so many offices, not just elective, but appointive. And he was competent in all of them, and that's why he continued to rise. His greatest achievement, well, maybe he would cite what I had mentioned in the beginning, helping the world to adjust to one of the most massive changes in modern world history, which was the fall of the Soviet Union. But, I would add a personal quality, persistence. Most of the clips I've seen today haven't focused on the difficult parts of his career other than his loss in 1992. He lost two consecutive Senate races in Texas in 1964 and then in 1970. Think about that. Most people who tried for the Senate twice and lost twice in very disappointing outcomes would have basically called it quits in politics and gone into private life, private business. But he was determined to succeed because he thought he had something to contribute. And his persistence paid off. And it's a great lesson for all of us. We can't quit just because we lose.
Larry Sabato, so grateful you can join us, Larry.
Thank you, Rena.